This is a regularly scheduled meeting on the Commission on Father, Men, and Boys. We want to thank you for coming out today. This meeting was rescheduled from last week, so we're happy to see the commissioners and our audience here. A few of our commissioners are on their way here, but we'll have a roll call for the ones that are here, starting with Ms. Scott.
Hello, I'm Elsie Scott.
Don Smith.
Jelani Moraine.
I'm George Garrett, the chair. We will start with approval of the minutes of 6/28/17. The minutes are in the package. The commissioners briefly review the minutes and let us know if any corrections are noted. Thank you. All in favor? All opposed? Minutes are accepted. Thank you. I'm going to recognize our Executive Director, Tony Duggar, to talk about the mission and the topic for today. Mr. Duggar? Did he step up for a second? So Tony gets, oh, here he is. Passed over to you, yielded to you, Mr. Duggar, on agenda item 4, Commission of Father, Men, and Boys mission and topic.
Sure. Very briefly, the mission of the Commission of Father, Men, and Boys, the commission was established in 2014 by the D.C. City Council for the purpose of addressing fatherlessness and disparities in education, economic opportunity, health and well-being, and public safety that adversely impact father, men, and boys in the District of Columbia. We are a 12-member body that represents multiple generations of D.C. residents, community activists, executive directors, entrepreneurs, university professors, and judicial scholars. And our purpose is strictly, as mentioned, advocating on behalf of father, men, and boys in the District of Columbia.
Thank you. Our principal purpose, I'm going to allow you to maintain the floor as we talk about the principal reason for this meeting, which is our annual plan, a discussion of the annual plan. I'll let Tony begin with that, and myself and the other commissioners will chime in appropriately.
Sure. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think the best way to dive right into this is by our brief PowerPoint presentation. Let me just put some context to this. As we know, the mission has been in existence now for several years, and a lot of our activities have been designed to culminate to a point producing an annual plan for the mayor and the city council. And today we are looking at a preliminary outline of what some of those recommendations may be. And so as we can see in the first slide, we identify the Establishment Act of 2013, and we have captured here the section prepare and recommend to the mayor and the council an annual plan of programs and services focused on issues directly related to father and boys. The composition of the plan stands as a research and review. We have engaged stakeholders, government and community partnerships, and we have board on technical advisors. We have established a brief logic model. Not going to go through it or engage in kind of academic exercise in this, but I am going to point to the outcome column. The inputs are very clear. The appointment of staff, the onboarding of commissioners, the engagement of stakeholders, and our inputs and our outputs have been our activities where we have developed a strategic plan. We have participated in 100+ meetings over the last few years. so on, down to our public meetings, our public forums. At the time that this was put together, we were at 8. We are now at 10. And when we certainly end this year, we would have completed 12 public forums. And we have engaged in countless hours of looking at various research and reports, national models. As a result of that, we have created participation throughout the city. Certainly the commission has been participatory in a number of activities. We have had an interagency group that has been functional, community partners, national organizations, and the central government agencies that we have worked more specifically with. So our short term, and as I go into the goals again, so our short term goals, we have certainly completed or accomplished column 1, development of agency partnership, community collaborations, compile and organize findings, and develop, at least preliminarily, an annual plan. Now, I say that because, of course, the plan will go through its process of vetting and review by the administration. Some of the midterm goals is how we move forward with improved data for how we look at father, men, and boys in the District of Columbia, specific tracking and monitoring of those programs, the implementation of more informed methods and strategies that positively affect the target population, and increasing, of course, capacity, which is very interesting of a concept because we're talking about capacity with current programming, but ultimately, as we look at our long-term goal, third column, it is increasing capacity in our communities to sustain the kind of programs that will ultimately sustain change. So our logic model has 3 fundamental assumptions that really is the backbone to our report. One is the quality of life experiences, information, education are essential to changing attitudes, values, and beliefs. Public resources, programming, and services are essential to creating quality life experiences, information, and education within local communities and neighborhoods. And over time, conclusion to this and our assumption that these conditions establish communities capable of sustaining such change. And so we know that there could be some potential threats to this. Realistically, as we will outline any plan, I think, for any commission, and that is looking at, first and foremost, limited government and community resources, changing political conditions, and one of the things we never want to have happen, and that's the loss of community gas.
Can you just speak very briefly about the agency partnerships that we've developed? I think that's a significant aspect of the work that we've done over the past
Sure, Mr. Chair.
couple of years.
Yeah, so our agency partners, probably let me go back to our intervals in terms of how we've met. So initially we started our meeting bi-monthly, 14 agencies. Let me ground that in our legislation that when it's in its original writing was to establish an advisory council to the commission. That advisory council was to consist of minimally about 14 agencies, URS, DHS, DOH, DCPS, so on and so on. In the final version of our legislation, somehow that was poured out, I think it was put out inadvertently. But nonetheless, at the start of the commission, we saw the significance of that, so we moved ahead with it nonetheless. And so we've been able to engage the agencies first on a bi-monthly basis and now on a quarterly basis where we come together to really review programs to make overall assessments internally and externally around the target process.
The reason I noted that is because it's important, I think, as part of the commission's charge. We're able to communicate with agencies and talk about the needs of father, men, and boys, and agencies are able to educate us with respect to where they are, and so it's a collaborative process. We're in that way, we're able to impact agencies that may not have a good handle on the work that the agencies might be doing with families. We're able to provide some level of focus with respect to what we believe to be outcomes that we'd like to see with respect, or the city, that would be good for the city with respect to the progress of father, men, and boys in the city. So I just note that because I think that's an important, it's an important function of the agency. And in our 2-year, I mean, we're still a young commission. I think we might be able to have, or I expect us to have significant impact as time goes on with respect to the collaboration of these agencies in our work.
Sure, and probably just to speak more to your point, thank you for that, Mr. Chair. But to speak more to that point, I think it's great to report how conscientious our city is around this. The agencies have been very responsive. As you'll see when we go down in the report, we have a considerable ranking, nationally on our commitment to Black male achievement, which is notable. But we do know, given some of the challenges, not only just in the District of Columbia, with all the great prosperity that we have, but even nationwide, some social issues concerning our case government resources. And so we have to be prepared to be more strategic and aggressive in terms of how we can reach the population. So we are in a good space in the District of Columbia with our commitments. We're talking about impact and sustainability over time. Should I progress?
Hmm?
Should I progress?
Yes, please.
So there are three key words, and I kind of talked about those very briefly. One is level of commitment, level of impact, and level of sustainability. There are three fundamental findings, I think, that can shape the body of our report and recommendation. First and foremost, the district exceeds most jurisdictions across the country in its commitment to addressing Black male achievement. Number two is that we know, even with our commitment levels, that social needs continue to challenge government and community resources. Clearly identify some of the numbers that we see. I always love to say that when we look at achievement and we look at some of the things that's going on in the District of Columbia, we have all these great accomplishments, even across the board, even males of color. But we are males of color are progressing at a much slower pace. So there's still a challenge. The third point is more innovative strategies. Then, kind of as a third point to the report, more innovative strategies among government and community resources are required to address this problem. So our first point, the district exceeds most jurisdictions across the country as it relates to Black male achievement. This national ranking is based on the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, a national organization that seeks to ensure the growth, sustainability, and impact of leaders and organizations committed to improving outcomes for Black men and boys. Their inaugural report identifies, which ranks 50 cities across 29 states, D.C. as third. Now, I believe that if you do not have in your packages a detailed report from the Campaign for Black Male Achievement, then we want to make sure that you get that, we do have it right. And you will see our next slide kind of give a breakdown of how we kind of get to this. Some things that I think on a practical level, we certainly grab as a commission. Other points to their criteria is more specific to their organization. But the level of commitment, and we're still pulling these numbers, really look at probably the amount of dollars that we spend yearly on programming that impact males of color. I tend to operate from the point of view, there are some programs that you can readily identify that impact males of color, and there are other programs that are impacting our target population that you may never really identify. So I have a fundamental rule of assessment that any program you see that tend to focus on families outside of those specific titles that we can readily identify, we know that there's going to be an impact. So if we look at our homeless community and the aggressive policies that our mayor has around ending homelessness, we know that that's going to have a tremendous impact on fathers. And that program may not specifically state fathers, but that's sort of how we go about assessment.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
The scoring.
Yeah.
Has any publicity been put out on this? Because this is great news.
Sure. Well, the city paper, actually, some of our early initial research, we came upon this in the city paper, and it commended at that time the mayor and the school chancellor, Kai Henderson, for actually the Ron Brown implementation of Ron Brown School, and then the mayor on the expansion of SYEP, of the Career Connections. We were also highlighted in this article for our work around Ban the Box with the returning citizens community. So these are some of the initiatives.
It's very quiet, I agree.
Yeah. So,
The index, they put out there when U.S. News and World Report and those other magazines that give these ratings.
Yeah.
absolutely. So if I can, because as we move through this, this is very formal because it's a public meeting, but just being aware of who we have in the room, I would just like to, if I can, I would, as a person behind us who works specifically with my brother's keeper, where this report is tied to that. I don't know if you may want to chime in on some of this. Would you like to chime in on maybe some of this discussion as it relates to this report and where we went in the city, Dr. Lewis?
Well, I appreciate it. I came more to observe.
Okay, no problem.
But, you know, again, the work that this commission is doing, I think the potential that this commission has to convene this work and support this work is really abundant. During this time that we're speaking of, the commission is leading the way as my brother's keeper was being re-energized in the city about this time last year, quite frankly. And so, on the dovetail of this, when the mayor decided that she wanted to reintegrate and re-energize the work of my brother's keeper. So, my brother's keeper's work that is being done now to serve DC under the leadership of General Hunter and Kendrick Jackson, who does the day-to-day operations of my brother's keeper, is largely on the foundation that is being described here. So, I think that's probably the most that I should be able to add. I mean, I probably have more in this future slides that
Sure.
are going to edify.
Yeah. So I think to Dr. Scott's point, I know every time that I go out and I speak on this, I certainly talk about this. I think this is great. What I have heard, I think in the follow-up report, I believe this report came out, when was it, 2015, 16?
It was a 2015 report. I think it came out in
Came out, right.
2016.
20, right. So what I'm hearing is that we have risen in the ranks. Like we should be somewhere probably around the high, the first place. That's
Really?
what I heard. So I haven't seen the official reports yet. So don't quote me on it. I'm just kind of talking to at least some of the folk that have worked here in the district. One of the beautiful things I think that we do have is some of our leaders and professionals who work here in the city, and some of the agencies are now connected to the Campaign for Black Male Achievement
Mhm.
and some of the other organizations that are connected to my brother's keeper, so you can get those conversations going as to what DC looks like in that light. So, so again, on the commitment level, I think what is excellent information is to really look at that. And again, there are three words that I use to simplify this around commitment. That is, for the city, it's about the money, and then it's impact. That's about the evaluation and measurement, and then sustainability. It's just, that speaks for itself. Can we take these programs and hold them up for significant periods of time? And see, changes. I think at some of the base levels. And what I mean by the base levels, I'm talking about that segment of our population of father men and boys that are probably at high risk levels. And so we can move those who are grasping and connecting to, the opportunities, but we know that there are those that's kind of between the gaps that's kind of still out there trying to make a decision about where they want to go. So I'm not going to go too deep dive into this, but this is are some of the programs and areas that really speak to our level of commitment. Now, I want to also point to our 30-month report. You have seen the 18-month report, but we have submitted the 30-month report additionally because it speaks to what the administration continues to do around just achievements for the city at large, but more specifically for father men and boys of color. So you will see mentioned again in the 30-month report the mayor's commitment of $220 million in school renovations. Of course, again, when we look at that across the board, that certainly has an impact for the opportunity of our constituency. All right, so social needs continue to challenge public and private resources. I think, as I mentioned earlier, these are just some of the numbers of where we stand in the district, where some of the disparities continue to exist. you can certainly look through that. But I think, as I mentioned earlier, when we look at the general success of the city and of all of our residents, the males of color, with the successes that we have, is still very much a slow, progressive movement. In other words, when you have, if I compare it, like I love to compare it to a faucet of water, that's pouring with prosperity and opportunity. When we look at that as relates to Father Many Boys of Color, then that's probably more of a slow drip. It's success, but it's at a much slower rate.
Average white household in DC earns $150,000 a year.
Yeah, and what's very interesting is
That's significant now.
yeah. So here's something that's very interesting when we look at these numbers, and they're second. They're not even top of the totem pole. Asian households make more.
Right. No, that's significant. Yeah. I did not know the average was as high.
So, and I think that, in order to put this in proper context, we have to look at concentration as well. So, one of the things the mayor was very astute in doing, as many of us know, is to focus heavy concentration on each of the rivers. So if we look at some of the concentration of incomes that shows disparity gaps, you're going to really see that. So that's just really important. So, sometimes when I talk about gentrification, I talk about gentrification not necessarily being a specific ethnic group, but it could be more of a socioeconomic class. And so, the kind of work that we're doing in terms of how we balance these competing interests in the city certainly will lend itself to really looking at that if we continue to escalate the way we are around what these income levels look like, and having the wherewithal to spread our opportunities across all ethnic lines, then we could very well have a space in D.C. where we have a diverse residency, right? We have a diverse group of people living here, but everybody living here would be probably need to earn $150,000, $100,000 in order to, to have a solid life.
That's the real challenge for the city. To be able to welcome the changes that are happening in the city, but at the same time trying to preserve a possibility and opportunity, particularly in housing
For everyone.
for everyone. Yeah.
And so does this mean that African American homes is at the lowest ethnic group? Because I see Latino homes are 55 to 60, African American are 50.
Yeah, I think most reports that I've looked at, and not just recently since this commission, but I think for a minute, having been in this work for the last 15, 20 years, clearly not that far back, but probably within the span of the last 4 to 5 years, I have consistently seen reports where the Latino population overall income has exceeded that.
Right, more likely to have two-parent homes.
And again, yeah, that's right. Also, you're looking at household income.
Household income, absolutely.
Not per capita.
Now, so I mean, the beautiful thing with this, and looking at this from so many different angles, right? So, we are the seventh most prosperous city in the nation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Of the top 20.
That's 50 July where I come from.
Yeah. So if you look at kind of the other six, they are predominantly West Coast cities, and they do not have as much diversity as we have here. So that says a lot in terms of, I believe, when I look at that, right? That says a lot of what we're doing in the city, where we have this diversity going on socially, economically, and being able to kind of take the lower portions of our residents and to bring them up in order to get into the top 10%. So
I'm
I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying the real challenge that the city is going. It's going to really see how things evolve as. Most of the new residents obviously have been white, and the real challenge is and young.
Yes.
Primarily.
Yeah.
And so the real challenge will be as they begin to marry and have children, will they stay? Will their children go to DC schools? and how that will change neighborhoods, communities, opportunities for affordable housing. And I don't think we really know, but that will be the interesting thing. I mean, as some changes happened back in the 80s, generally speaking, when people began to mature, and they got older, folks left. In other words, the younger folks who came, when they began to have children or wanted to have children, married, etc., they generally went to the suburbs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a gross generalization, but I think that's fair to say. This influx has been more substantial. People seem to be staying. The new residents seem to be staying a long period of time and express an intention to maintain their roots and to stay here. It'll just, time will only tell if that will happen once we really begin to have children.
So
time
I,
moves on.
yeah, so I think some of the indicators in the city would certainly probably suggest that is the case, because we are constantly improving in all of the systems.
That's
So
true.
it becomes a practice to stay.
Yeah.
I think also if we were to look at what can be a challenge, and I think we're currently looking at, I don't know if any jurisdiction, and I guess when we get to a point of opening up, maybe someone in the room could speak to if they have such knowledge. I don't know if any jurisdiction may have balanced development, progression, generally of cities or urban areas with the needs of our residents in overlooking and underserved communities without a definite outcome of displacement, right? So,
My feeling is that what I've
That's a
seen in
hard
cities
balance.
around the country that they have not done a good job.
sure,
Most
right.
cities have not done it.
Sure. So I was going to add, Mr. Chairman, to I think what's another influence to that. If we just look at this economically, right? So if we look at east of the river, it's a prime opportunity to invest in a home. They're cheaper homes, but this is also the area where
That window is closed.
exactly
That's your point.
That's
yeah.
the key.
Yeah.
So our young professionals who are coming in, all ethnic groups, people are going to look for the best investment. So if they're making $100,000, $150,000, as opposed to buying a house up by Rock Creek Park, I'm going to buy it over here at W Street. I'm going to wait until all the shooting stops, and I'm going to ride it out, because I have a sense of knowing that there are some great projections for the city in its entirety. Generally everything is going up in the city and not going down. So you're smiling, Commissioner.
I moved onto a W Street in Northwest near Howard University when there were a bunch of shootings going on, and the same thing happened. It calmed down. People had kids, and it changed.
And the prices of home, that Bloomingdale, right?
Right.
The prices of home in that neighborhood now are crazy.
Right.
I mean, absolutely.
So,
It's unbelievable.
absolutely. So,
Yeah.
I moved from JoJo's across the street from me.
yeah. So I'm born and raised over there, so I can certainly attest to that whole area. Absolutely correct. Yeah, compared to I think okay, so that's generally where we are. So again, the social needs continue to challenge public and private resources. And so how do we collectively close the gaps? These are things that are certainly known. There's no magic bullet here. We know that early educational performance supported programming through high school graduation, post-secondary education, and or educational attainment, or that really should be vocational attainment, specialized prevention and or intervention measures addressing social determinants of health, mentoring, coaching, affordable housing, healthy family development, responsible fatherhood, healthy relationships, effective parents. Some of the agency responses, some of the programming, just in a snapshot of we know that has a direct impact on our target population.
Many of whom have
Or
come to our
come to
commission
our- right,
meetings
exactly.
and
All of them
discuss
have.
these things. with
Yeah,
us.
all of them have, absolutely. And additionally, most of them have come before the commission.
Yeah, that's definitely.
That's true. Yeah. So two broad, our criteria has points to them. Two criteria for our recommendations, I should say. One is that they're broad-based, So they are flexible in respect to the fact that they can move from one agency to the next, one model to the next. And the other point is that they're designed to support current programming services in the city. I always like to report out, and when I'm presenting publicly, I like to talk about the commission's work is made easier in the district because of simply what we do and what we do today. So our recommendations certainly centers around, number one, comprehensive data. In DC Mills, color programming initiatives must be driven by the common need for government and community data that depicts common issues and needs of father, men, and boys. It compiles this data from collective program evaluations that involve both prevention and intervention methods. Let me say to this particular recommendation, though it is specific in terms of data around father, men, and boys of color, we are generally undergoing a new data initiative in the District of Columbia. You have in your packet a slide presentation that was done by Barney Kukal, and I believe he's the liaison on this particular data initiative. And what you will see in there are just some of the kind of broad strategies that the mayor has for how to improve data for the District of Columbia. Now, what I want to say is this, without becoming too involved in this subject, because this is a meeting by itself. A lot of these recommendations are kind of subtopics to our general report that really can take on some deep dive. And so probably at future, near future meeting, we could have Mr. Kukal come out and to do that for presentation.
Now, what agency is he?
He is on the initiative. I want to say it is with Octo.
He's with Octo? Oh.
Yes, he's the chief data officer. He's
Oh,
the
okay.
chief. Thank you. Yep.
What's the relationship of that to what's it called, the lab?
Yes. So yes. The relationship is that they are essentially working in tandem on the same project around data. I believe that one is individually funded, and I believe that the other is connected to ARCO or to the office. I think one is coming out of the city administrator's office, and the city administrator's office has gotten funding for that particular issue.
To actually be able to aggregate and disaggregate data along the lines of
I want to say generally yes to that, but I think probably to the reports that each and every one of you have, there's that report says to us that they are going to be dealing generally with data and closed data and how to kind of restructure that so data can be made more available. We know that when we get into certain issues of data, and we've been talking about this in the commission, a lot of data is confidential, but it may have an impact on maybe wraparound services from one agency to the next if, in fact, that information can be referred or transferred over or may not. And so how we can improve the information that we have to serve our population certainly would have some dependence on what that policy is saying.
George, on the lab, I know they are seeking to do partnerships with the university. They already have a relationship, I think, with contract with American, and they're working on one with UBC. And we recently met with them at Howard to talk about how the universities can help to generate data for them, at no cost or little cost to the city.
So I think the other thing is that keeps us at the table around this whole issue, and that is so this general initiative, this general policy piece that deals generally across the board, kind of how we set up data, look at data sets, and those kinds of things you'll see in the report. Still is a necessity for us to really kind of talk about on a much micro level data that is pertaining to our target population and what that looks like across agency lines. So in essence, I don't know how far this project really goes there, per se, without the involvement of those advocates being at the table like us in the commission to continue to have that kind of conversation. Strength-based reporting is the next suggested recommendation. And for years, local do the work and where we're going. Particularly, I'll be talking about mentoring and those kinds of things, and how we can take the best of our community and match and show the most positive examples how we can move the needle forward. So we certainly make that recommendation, and we're making that recommendation based off evidence that we have from the research of Dr. Colson and what that could look like. I'm sure that there are some other general things before more specifically from our local agencies and institutions, but by virtue of the fact that we do have the benefit of his work on the commission, and it makes sense that becomes a recommendation. So integrated services among core agencies. This has already taken place by and large, but how can we probably speak to this more specifically? So, like, I know, for example, there are resource centers that are almost attached to every grant that goes out. For example, from Child Family Services, I know that DHS is doing a very similar model where every service that is connected to these agencies are also connected to other agencies, such as behavioral health, DOES. It's more of a wraparound collective array of services to be able to positively affect positive population. There's another piece here, I think, in the national model that we looked at that I think really speaks very heavily to healthy relationships and having healthy relationships as a part of the integrated model. Again, we can go more specifically in another meeting, I think, some of the research around why that really works, particularly if we're talking about family stabilization. And not only just family stabilization, I should say, when you have particularly teen fathers involved, kids having kids, I think you will find that one of the greatest challenges in the stabilization of that kind of family is the lack of healthy relationships. Our kids really do not know what healthy relationships is. They have no examples. So generally, integrated services is happening. I believe that we will be in a good posture to kind of talk about healthy relationships kind of in a major way. So everything else is kind of there: co-parenting, substance abuse, certain supportive services around rites of passage for youth, conflict resolution, of course, financial aid. The Teen District of Columbia Teen Fatherhood Initiative. We can certainly and will explore this a little more because there are a number of fatherhood programs that are up and running. I know that the Attorney General's Office, Child Support Division, has a fatherhood initiative. CFSA is doing fatherhood cafes. I believe DHS, they do have a fatherhood initiative there. I forget about the top of my head the actual name of that, but they do have one. Many of these fathers we recognize during our fatherhood, I should say our Father's Day celebration at Malcolm X, and they came partners, supporting fathers from a lot of different agencies. But here, what we are maybe proposing, of course, we want to explore more on this, and that is a kind of comprehensive fatherhood program across these agencies that have a somewhat of a common goal. So you kind of look at some of the DHS families and some of the CFMB families, and then you kind of look at maybe some of the kids at the DYRS. It would be great to see the connected pieces. Perhaps we might see families showing up in all these agencies. It's almost like what we have found in our correctional system. I remember many years working for the Department of Corrections. We always had the unfortunate story to tell on occasions where you had 2 or 3 generations of men incarcerated at the same time. And so I think we could probably see some of our families that are in these various agencies. And so, what would a comprehensive fatherhood program look like, and how would that serve the agencies that are connected to those populations? Any questions? The next one, grant making authority. I think the big thing here with grant making, because grant making authority, I think everybody wants grant making authority, but I think
we want money so that we can grant sub-grant out.
Right.
I have the authority.
That's right. Authority for me.
But if we look in the supportive evidence column, what we try to for us is enhancing our capacity to be able to put the best models out there. Certainly, if you have grant making authority and you're able to set programs up in the community, then you are able to implement these best practice models, and then at the same time, we're able to get really fresh data around the evaluation of this program. I think it would advance the work that we're doing tremendously. I think we'll be able to have greater influence once we put these best practice models out there and people see that they work. We'll be more prone and apt to take on these models.
And could you talk a bit? I mean, you and I have talked often about it, but I don't think many of the commissioners have heard about efforts that are ongoing to provide greater funding to the commission.
Sure. So
through the council.
Yeah. So we are certainly looking at probably on the grant making authority, and it's several points because if we talk in general funding, we are talking to a number of entities just around some programs and initiatives for the commission generally. Right? If we're talking more specifically about grant making authority, we are certainly having the conversation, and we are moving that conversation, I'd probably say, appropriately through the administration. I think that is the most productive route to take. Because what happens with that is then we go through that process, and then what happens is we will, given where the administration is with that for us, then we will get the kind of support that we need. And so let me kind of talk a bit about alternatives. So if we were, say, strategically trying to take a legislative route, theoretically, if we do not have the blessings of the administration, we can certainly take that route and still not get support. And so the goal here is to get support, right? So I think, what I can report out, what we know definitively is that the mayor definitely supports this work across the board. We have been very fortunate in the city to have, I think, this work coming from so many different places. And that's what really makes it great. We have MBK, we have agencies that's doing great work. We have the Commission on Parliament and Boards, probably one of the few commissions, and they're popping up now. But when we started just several years ago, I actually researched and Googled. There's very few of these commissions, across the country that exist specifically for this work. So I think that approach through the administration, given what we have described here, what this will do for us in benefiting us and expanding our capacity and being able to provide some of the evidence around the best practice models of doing this work, I think would be an appropriate justification, probably at some point, to have some sort.
So are you suggesting, I mean, I know we had some discussions with, for example, Ms. Bennett.
Yes.
About presenting to the council.
Right.
Were you suggesting that a discussion needs to be had with the executive body first?
Always.
Prior
Yeah,
to
sure.
going to...
Well, always the case.
Yeah.
Always the case. But again, I mean, what we should look at as a commission, which is a very healthy approach, all our alternatives and all our strategies to best serve the population. But, given where we are as relates to what the city has to do, our best options are contained within the executive branch. I believe that, again, based on what we outlined in this report, it would be a win-win for everyone, that we could get these kinds of programs that we're going. The other alternative to that as well is, we already have the ability to receive grants. We have the ability to receive those. So that's already there. Mm-hmm. So we can achieve many of the things that we're talking about here, just in that avenue, and then we can leverage that too, at some point, being able to say to the administration, hey, let us put some of these grants out and let us advance the work that we've done.
Well, one of the things that will impact our ability to be able to reach outside, let's say, the bounds of the city, just as an example, to get funding maybe from a national or regional foundations, will be our ability to obviously discuss programming and show how we can be effective at programming. But part of that will be grant making authority. I mean, it's sort of a chicken and the egg, so to speak. So I'm just hopeful. We probably need to have a greater discussion with respect to who we need to have greater conversations with in the mayor's office in regard to that.
And that's where the recommendation is there. I think what comes with this is whether that will become something immediate or something that's long term. It's certainly, I think it's appropriate that we put it on the table.
I would hope that it's it's more midterm to immediate as opposed to long term. I mean, if the commission is truly going to be effective, beyond, in other words, to build upon its effectiveness that we've had thus far, we need to be able to take that next step. It needs to be a part of the next step.
Real quick, speaking of long term, I just remember that the initial charges, how this came down from the federal level and Obama's commission. And I'm wondering, is there any communication with the current administration? Are they even interested in this? I hope that's not a rhetorical question, but I'm just wondering, are they because the authority? I assume the authority is still there. I assume the office is there. Are they even making any communications at all to the states about this program anymore?
Well, so let me make a distinction, because though there are synergies, because I believe you're speaking to MBK.
Right.
So though there are synergies between MBK and the Commission on Parliament and Board.
It's not the same thing.
Well, it is. It's the same work. It's the same connected piece. There's relationship. But MBK is MBK and it's federal. And the mayor has established that. That's why I introduced Dr. Mitchell here. She's kind of established that in his shop and with the designated people that he spoke to.
Okay.
And then there's the Commission on Parliament and Boards. What is beautiful with the Commission on Parliament and Boards is that we are locally based. Right? We have legislation that came out of our city council that allows this commission to exist. And so, we anticipate MBK really being there for the long haul. We have a current administration that certainly probably will not recognize it, but it doesn't need that.
And I think that's his question in
That's
part
his
too,
question,
with
right.
respect to whether or not the MBK still exists on the federal level.
Yeah, I think one of the beautiful things that our former president did was that he set up MBK in the private sector. He did not exclusively put it within the federal ranks of the government.
Cities.
Right, exactly. So it has a standalone capability. Again, we talked about earlier what are some of the threats in changing political conditions.
Right.
So when we look at how we move from this current administration, right, with positive anticipation that we'll be with a new administration, right, that then this particular initiative, MBK, can certainly be something that will be, top of the agenda.
Sure.
In spite of that, though, the Commission on Parliament and Board in Washington, D.C. is going to be, the legislation has to be overturned. So I'm going to pause. Would you like to chime in, Dr. Mitchell?
So, my brother's Keeper Alliance, which is what Obama set up as a nonprofit, just got absorbed by the Barack Obama Foundation.
Okay.
That's research that just happened maybe about 2 weeks ago. Now it's been in the works, so that President Obama could have greater span and control and direct connection with my brother's people.
Now, the office that was here, that national office, that has been subsumed into the foundation.
Correct. So that is part of the foundation. Now, whether or not they're going to maintain a footprint in D.C. or move to Chicago, where his library and his headquarters are being built, or all of the philanthropy and all of the work that he's doing surrounding leadership development, it's not clear to me. But he's here. The president is here, so I would assume that all the people accessibility and programming as it relates to access to funding. Right now, one of the big reasons why my brother's keeper DC didn't really fit under the office of the chief medical examiner. I'm the chief medical examiner of the city. Is because we did not have grant making authority, did not have the ability to really receive monies outside of our legislative mandate. So it didn't make sense just because of the comfort of the mayor to have an individual she trusted to relaunch it. It's really the reason why I got involved, right? Is now it's in a place in Serve where Serve DC can make grants, has the ability to receive monies and sub-delegate money, sub-contract money down. So it has a more robust, and it is the volunteer organization for the District of Columbia. So it has a more robust portfolio where my brother's keeper DC can fit and move, and it has been able to move a little bit more nimble. Now, my brother's keeper DC's relaunch, because it was in multiple places. DCPS had a piece of it, the commission had a piece of it, and so to consolidate the definition and environment, that's why it came under one.
It's officially going to be relaunched with
No, it has been relaunched under one.
under Serve.
It was relaunched back in January of 2017.
Okay.
So it's less than a year old in its current form. And so there's still so many opportunities as it relates to the combined and shared vision for my brother's keeper DC and the commission. And there is only shared vision for that as long as Tony or any other executive director sticks with my brother's keeper DC. One thing that while I have it that I would add is that there's a brand new office that has the potential to dilute the pool even more, called the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement. And this office is coming out of the NEAR Act. So those of you that have been following the NEAR Act, it was first put in through by Kenny McDuffie and asked for individuals to receive a stipend really for staying out of trouble. That's how people were quoting it. It under Mayor Bowser, it is an opportunity for individuals to engage in programmatic opportunities where they will receive a stipend, but they have to engage fully in programmatic opportunities that allow for them to move in a different direction from where they are currently. And be actively focused on shooters, actively focused on individuals that are of greatest need and of greatest wraparound services. And primarily, who are they? Right? They're father, men, and boys, right? And so this office that will be launched, I believe, in October, will be based here in Southeast, and will have again another commission will gain another ally and potential opportunity to be a sub-granted entity because they'll have grant-making authority. So there are
An independent agency? Is
they
that?
are an independent agency that reports to the deputy mayor of public safety and justice, and their executive director is a cabinet level. That executive director is still under search right now. Has not been, or she has not been named yet, but that is another ally to the commission as it tries to identify funding sources, resources, and/or aligned programs for the commission.
Thank you.
Yeah. So thank you, Dr. Mitchell. So that's definitely Dr. Scott.
No, he was saying the same thing. I was raising my hand. I wanted to talk about the folding of the Obama Foundation and MB pay.
So does that help get for you?
Yes, it does.
Great. So specialized training, the next recommendation, government District of Columbia ensures that specialized training is mandated research shows that agency workers, managers, and community service providers who receive ongoing training and educational supports are better equipped and effective to serve the population in any segment thereof. Such training is heightened awareness, primarily heightened awareness, social needs, challenges, and barriers to achievement for the target population. In the report, we have also added what we call a government responsibility statement. And this is really a statement that comes off of the research that we have performed that really speaks to some of the challenges. We will close out as we move through the presentation on the mentoring subject. That also becomes a very big piece for us. So this is connected to what we are also talking about, quote unquote, an informed mentoring, where we move mentoring kind of from mentoring extracurricular activity or what I report on effective strategies for mentoring, which you have in your pamphlet. I like the way it's described here, the old system of mentoring, the buddy approach, to a more informed approach where we are strategically aware, heightened awareness of how we serve males of color. So the government responsibility statement, and we really do this in the district, so when we talk about this in the report, necessitous plan is tied to the government's responsibility to keeping its promise to creating opportunities for its most vulnerable population. Research shows that a significant percentage of African American and Latino males are distrusting of government due to historical exclusions and discrimination. This history and the ongoing experiences of trauma in their community and families generally make them distrusting of life. Therefore, this commission's recommendations are made with the intent of producing consistently tangible results for this population. In order to shift attitudes, values, and beliefs of the population, males of color must experience a system that works. When the government fails to deliver, this reinforces the perception of a system that doesn't work for them or for their community. Subsequently, they turn away and regress to a lifestyle of antisocial, maladaptive behavior because for them, this is their first perception of survival. So as we know that the current mentoring programs that we have in the city has really done this very well, where they have emphasized really the experience that our young people get, right? And from that experience, they've been able to kind of coach them into the different possibilities of their promise, of their future. So, you know, the old saying is, sometimes with our young people, we just can't tell them what to do, because if we're constantly trying to tell them what to do without them seeing, you know, the correct way life should go, then they tend to only follow the experiences that they have had their entire life. And so that's what this really speaks to, is being consistent, government being consistent with making sure that we are providing the best experiences. So in the second paragraph, you can see that there are some essential agencies that have this responsibility would carry more meaning than probably other agencies. So the District of Employment Services and the WIC system that interacts more with our target population, Office of Attorney General, our adult correctional system, Department of Human Services, DYRS, kind of so on and so on. These agencies that have more direct contact with the Child Family Services Agency, and other like agencies. This particular government responsibility statement is pulled primarily from what we know the socialization process is for males of color. It is there. This is pulled from research, again, research that we have done to solidify the positions of the commission in this report. And just probably to touch on the first bullet, any understanding of African American men is predicated on understanding of African American history and culture. This means that mentoring and coaching approaches must be based on an understanding of and sensitivity to the personal history of African Americans. Young African American men in contemporary society face many challenges and may have an impact on their development. Manhood historically has not been the right for African American males. And given the forces that impinge on the development of African American men, it's imperative that committed mentors and coaches help them develop attitudes and behaviors that encourage functionality at optimal psychosocial levels in a demanding world. African American men run into great difficulty as they grow older and become stronger. Chief problem is that they are nurtured in a hostile, non-supportive supportive environment. The environment often includes poverty, criminal justice, unemployment, inequitable educational opportunities, and negative media. And so elements for effective mentoring, for a mentoring practice, and again, based upon what we have looked at over the last few years, it is we are suggesting a position that we go from mentoring as just an extracurricular activity or mentoring as a program to mentoring as a practice. And even more so, I often think of the most effective social marketing campaign in this country, the history of it, was the anti-smoking campaign. That's, all the reports show that. We go back, right? Right. And so when I think about, when we talk about in our initial points of aggressively closing the gap, this becomes the strategy of how we begin to build this capacity in our community. If we can shift the attitudes, values, and beliefs of our residents to really take on mentoring, right, on a very serious level, where they understand the real challenges to our young men, they understand a system of referral, and they understand really strong family development system, then I believe that we can begin to reverse the learning process, address the lack of identity in our young men, assist in shifting how they think about themselves, recognize and analyze attitudes and behaviors that stand in the way of their success, and so on and so on and so on to these bullets. And of course, the government can't do it alone. That's the position. We can't do it. A handful of people can't do it. I envision a day when the mail carrier, steps off of a mail truck and really, just as the average person understands the health risks of smoking. It is in the minds of people to understand what a healthy lifestyle is to get to a place where we really understand what's needed for our young men of color in our community. And so that's essentially where we are with the proposal. Again, it's preliminary, it's an outline. We certainly stand to revisit these topics and to have more specific, detailed presentations on them. I think that will certainly be helpful. One of the publications and books that I think would be great for the commissioners to have, and one is Mentoring Young Men of Color, which is written by Horace Hall. And then, of course, you do have this already in your packet, and this comes from the American Institute for Research and Effective Strategy on Mentoring African American Boys. And I think this particular report is a very critical one because, as I was talking to Dr. Ebola, just very quickly, I had some reports that I had actually highlighted a few areas in this report, but let me just go through very quickly. If you have a pen, I would just really like to draw out some of the points that I think are significant. So I'm not sure if people have this. If you like, certainly you can take a few of these and pass them out. I think this is a very good report, at least as a basis of discussion. And so certainly, like principle one, we know starting with a big vision is always the case. I think principle number three, when we begin to talk about the socialization process, when we begin to talk about the challenges, principle number three is based on trauma experiences and exposure to violence, complicate adolescent development, and that must be addressed. So when we start talking about mentoring as a practice, when we start talking about really developing and educating our mentors, I think these principles give us a really good outline to what that looks like. So definitely principle number three. I love this in principle number four. It said model mentoring programs for African American boys tend not to be traditional one-on-one mentoring programs. I love this. And so I'm going to go to the first paragraph. These programs often differ from the model in three key ways. First, number one, the mentoring model is not usually a one-on-one mentoring strategy for African American boys. It focuses more deliberately on pointing the youth towards a more positive and productive future rather than simply being a buddy. And there is more attention to the training. This is really what we have been talking about, and it's just beautiful to see this language come from the support. Attention to the training and preparation of mentors so they can so that they are more culturally competent to what pointing our young folk to their future.
That's consistent too with best practices in
Yes.
terms of mentoring.
Yes.
mentoring done correctly moves beyond this buddy phase and builds on, the developmental strengths of young men, what they want to see happen in their lives.
Absolutely.
So I'm supportive of that.
Sure. So, if I could just probably put an anecdotal piece of this as well. So we know that the young man, which has been spoken about all over the city, Zaire Kelly, who was murdered. This commission has been really involved in looking at how our young men must survive in order to get to the other side. So there is the other side to the breakthrough, but as they move to get to the other side, there are these survival experiences and things that they have to engage in. So the fact that Zaire Kelly had to literally carry a knife, a successful young man, really almost the poster child of this commission in terms of the work that we're trying to accomplish. In the midst of all of this success, he had to carry a knife in order to get through his community. So we have a number of documents that really show this trend where this is consistently going on in our community. So it goes back to this point of pointing them to their future, but it also goes back to the point of trauma, and how do we really deal effectively with trauma on the grassroots level, and then begin to change those conditions where a young man like him should never have to carry a knife. So there's a great book, and I've suggested this book. It's called The B-Side, and it's written by D. Watkins out of Baltimore. It's a very powerful book of how a young man comes out of the culture of selling drugs in Baltimore. His brother gets killed, and his only means of survival, at least for him, right, because they limited choices. For us, we may look at choices. For him, this is my only means of survival was to take the remaining drugs that was left after his brother was killed and to live off of that, and then to make his way to Loyola University. So the whole book is about him going to Loyola, but coming back into the inner city of Baltimore, right, having to kind of operate in that dark world, right, in order to hopefully get to the other side. And so these stories are consistent stories in the challenges and struggles of our young men as they are trying to do something, right, trying to make their way to their future. And so I think I probably can close out with, I like this one, and Dr. Bowden, I was kind of talking about this as well as principle number 7, because he's from the Department of Human Services. And it says when you are inclined to look look for role models among relatives, right, youth in the child welfare system are at a particular disadvantage. And I think that is also a very notable point of principle to think about when we look at our kids and when we look at underserved communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Comprehensive, and it's a challenging plan for the commission moving forward. For certain. I mean, again, the discussion of resources is crucial in terms of being able to, tackle most of those subjects in a way that should be addressed. But were there any questions from any of the commissioners with respect to what has been said, or any ideas that you think need to be discussed at this time?
I would only add that on one of the pages of the PowerPoint deck, there was some bullets about how do we collectively close the gaps. And other sections, there are references to agencies' responses, and I am thinking particularly about jobs and employment being, and I don't know how government funding and recommendations from our commission could affect job creation, but tying into DOES and what it is doing with project empowerment, I think the self-esteem aspects associated with having and holding a job and being able to provide is huge.
And speaking of jobs, just to dovetail on that, a lot of the, to be honest with you, political commentary I've been hearing lately is, there was a report recently that there are something like 6.2 million available jobs in this country and you know, it really is kind of incongruent with a lot of the things we hear on the ground, and that there's so much unemployment and so hard, and it's so hard for folks to find jobs. And what really the premise was that a lot of these jobs are trade jobs, and so this is just me speaking out loud. I was just wondering if there's any way that we can do a little bit more research about how to create a better focus on trade jobs, because it looks like everybody's trying to go to college and do all these things, and it may be what we're finding is that the policy is that some of that may be misguided, and that there are jobs out here. We have these young men who are obviously desperate, is what the numbers say, but there are jobs in some of these places. I don't know if that's the case in D.C., but I'll send you the information that I found on that. But electricians, they talked about it on NPR recently. They did a whole, Kojo Nabi did a whole 2-day period on it. It was a legislator from Maryland who was talking about how he's an electrician, and that there are all these jobs in these sectors, but we are all pushing these kids towards college, and obviously some people don't want to go to college. So anyway, I don't want to go out on a tangent, but I would love to discuss that more, and even if I could provide some of the research and groundwork to help out with that.
Anything else? Yes, anything from the audience?
I would like to piggyback on what he was just there are a lot of jobs. So what happens? The issue we're having with the population we're dealing with, you're talking about ages from 21, 28, and they legalized marijuana. That really did us damaging to our community, because you still have to take a test, and we're getting these guys jobs, but they're getting fired because they can't pass.
Wasn't that happening even before it was legalized?
Yeah, but this is more now.
But you're saying now, obviously, you can.
Now it's because now everybody's saying, oh, it's
Right.
It's open. But not only that, I think we have to do better in terms of this summer youth job program.
I agree with that.
My daughters, they may live in Southeast, but they've been going to private school since kindergarten. And so last year was the first year I said, look, I wouldn't go out, work, do the summer. And they came back and they said, Dad, they're not doing anything that they're supposed to be doing. They show up late, and the administration, whoever, well, part of these jobs are allowing. We shouldn't allow. You have rules. You got to stick with the rules. If you're supposed to come and work dressed like X, Y, and Z, then that's what it's supposed to be. Not just giving them.
See, but you're expressing. I mean, I understand exactly what you're saying. We ran Concerned Black Men for many years, and nationally, when we were based here in the city, and we had programs that we had a couple programs, fatherhood and a homeless veterans program, where we were helping to actually place men in jobs and working with those men. But going back to the point of marijuana usage and being tested for it, and your daughter's experience. I mean, it begins with that breakdown in the family, unfortunately, and that's why I mentioned even before marijuana was legal. We saw it in apprenticeship programs in DOES. I saw it with respect to the work that we did. I mean, I think that as we continue to work with our families, and the work with young men has to be holistic, and this is what we're talking about. You've got to work with families as well. But as we continue to do that, I think we've got to look at helping families and then the strong mentoring piece, because you know young people it's still something learned. Going through the work world, time, place, and manner for everything. Um, those things, unfortunately, are learned. I mean, fortunately, I think are learned. I mean, it's not something that a young person coming into the job market, just immediately knows. Your children, they may seem to immediately know that, but in fact, they learn that at home. You see what I'm saying? So it's. I mean, you just find it's the chicken and the egg. We work with young people in Concerned Black Men. We work with young people, and before not working with parents, and found that didn't work. You're working with parents, young people in schools. You send them back to uncertain environments at home. You got to work with the parents. So I'm just saying. I mean, it's not an easy discussion. I know exactly what you're saying. I do believe you had mentioned before a project empowerment. It's fits and starts, but project empowerment has shown some successes in terms of that through internship programs, for example, placing men in an internship, men and women in internship program for a 6-month period of time, and then helping to follow them through that internship placement in a job.
And just to break in, and maybe we ought to be also looking at private sector jobs. Some public-private partnerships where.
Well, to some extent, he's talking about that too.
Because some of these people
right?
are not. Some folks are. We all work with people who are functional alcoholics. And it may just be the new reality that some people are not going to pass a drug test. And I'm just talking, as an honest person here. And but I have contractors that come and work on my house. I have never drug tested these people. And frankly, I probably don't want to drug test them. Now that you're saying that. Right. So I think we may need to start thinking outside the box a little bit, because again, it seems to be a lot of work out there. I know I can tell in all the additions being done in my neighborhood, and I would submit that a lot of these people are not, going the straight and narrow like we're expecting some of these young people to do. So maybe we ought to I'm not saying that we should not look at the programs we've been looking at, but maybe we ought to think about expanding it a little bit.
Our young person who just left, he was sitting right behind me. Time that it all came, he left. So he probably 3 or 4 times, well, at least 3 times, he just didn't show up at work. So I had to set him down and let him know, like, see, as it relates to this commission and what we're trying to do, we're going to have to let you go. And just that simple message suggested his behavior. So my thing to him was, we don't have a problem with you taking off if you want to take off. What we want to teach you is accountability and responsibility. Call your employer and say, I can't come in today. And so the good news is he stopped the behavior. He took off one time after that. And guess what he did? He called Mr. Brown. Mr. Brown, the person he directed supervisor. So we are shifting behavior, right? He probably has been taught that. He probably hasn't seen an example of that. So they're coming in at that, you know, at different points. So what we want to do is kind of work with them and try to bring them over.
And the summer youth program, as you were saying, see, summer youth program is really an expanded grab them all, and it's never had. I mean, to be fair, it's not just this mayor, but since the creation of the program. I've been in town, I think, since the creation of the program. You never had enough people to really work with young people in the program around these issues. And so it's the program is better than it's ever been, but it still has major challenges because as it expanded, you're bringing in more young people, and you don't have quite as many adults to work with them, and the environments in which they're being placed in sometimes doesn't lend itself to the type of corrective, gentle corrective nature.
And I guess I took this, I worked with the gang chief in LA, Jim Brown, prior to coming here from California. It was much easier back then working with the gang members because they had a sense of foundation. They knew structure. They knew they had not only if they didn't have a father, we had the village syndrome back then. Well, what's missing now? The 20-something years I've been in D.C., you have these children raising children, and the fathers not being involved. I mean, some of these young guys, you'd have to literally go to their house and say, hey, this is how you prepare for school. You got to go to bed. You can't be up at night playing these games till 2 in the morning and think you're going to be prepared for school in the morning. So the fatherhood piece is very important. But not only the fatherhood piece, but the men. I can be scolded by Mr. Johnson across the street when I was growing up easily. But no, the men are not showing up. We got to get these brothers. I mean, the lady got stabbed 15 times yesterday with a baby in her hand. This community has to come back and bring some continuity and some. The men got to step up though, because the young guys have taken over the block.
Yeah.
The young guys taking over the block.
Okay. First, my name is Kevin Reed. I'm an NSW Social Student at the University of I grew up in the District of Columbia, one of the roughest environments in the church area. Spent 26 years of my life now I'm a graduate. So, to piggyback on this motion, when you coming from those environments, the individuals, people in those environments are the experts of this environment. You know, you could have these multi-layered programs and all these other things, but until relationships are built, like far as the mentoring,
Yeah.
whatever the point people, whatever direction, relationships building is what's missing inside of the community. Like I said, I come from that community, born and raised 26 years ago. So, and even going back in the summer, when the kids died at night, going to the funeral of my mother, I was 11 o'clock at night, as being normal to my 7th, 8th. And these are the pieces that we want to talk about when building these structures and going towards the future. That it's really hard to change the teenage mind. You can do your best, but even the kids, it's hard to build the foundation for the future. Right? How can relationships get built inside to help stir these early for father, men, and boys? You're talking about kids, and then you go to another generation as a teenager. So relationship building is connecting with somebody, hey, how you doing? Or like the genuineness to build a strong, to set a foundation for a strong mentoring program so that these principles can be effective. You know, that's the core thing. Even in social work, the number one principle is don't solve where your crime is. Not from the perspective, from your perspective,
Yeah.
but what is this person? How can I meet them? Hey, what's going on in your life before I start intervening and say, hey, these are the programs that you need. I got this set up. which are all these things are great. This is what we need. But what about their voice? You see what I'm saying?
And that's what we had to, you talk about in our fatherhood program with Concerned Black Men, we were most effective when we strengthened and included the session where the men talked among themselves and to some degree enforce discipline among themselves. So a new father comes in and he's making complaints about why he didn't support his child, that the mother wouldn't let him in and blah blah blah, and the guys, maybe some of that had validity, a lot of it didn't, but we didn't have to, the folks who ran the program didn't have to set him straight. The guys in the program set him straight because they said, okay, we understand that, but you BSing on some of that, particularly when, after he was in the program and he began talking about his life, and they knew immediately that some of these problems were created by him. And so they were able to do that and said that in a way that was much more effective than the people who were running the program themselves. So I understand exactly what you mean. Also, what we found too with respect to the mentoring is that as we were placing men in these jobs, we were able to get the employers to have a greater acceptance when we got the employers to appreciate that we were a partner. In other words, the organization itself was a partner. And this gets to the issue of when we're talking about jobs and helping folks maintain jobs. So if you go to an institutional employer, I don't know, for lack of a better term, let's say Walmart for right now, and they're reluctant to accept guys who are returning citizens, or reluctant to accept folks with maybe had a history of drug abuse, and we show them their resume, and their resume is spotty, and it's got to be explained. But we knew this person to have made great strides and had overcome some of those things. Well, what we were able to do to sell the employer is that, you're placing him in this job, but we're not leaving him. That session, that group that I talked about, he was able to come back to that group and get some support from the group, and our organization for 6 months to a year followed him and came on the job and was able to assist with maybe some issues. What happens often is that, obviously we all know folks who, if you've got multiple issues in your life, those are the things that even when you want to do good, those are the things that derail you. And what happens often is that, if your life has been derailed so often that when that happens, even when you've got support, you say, okay, me and my child's mother are beefing or fighting about something, so what the hell, I ain't going to work today. And we were there. We convinced the employer that we're going to be there and to step in that type of a situation and say, no, what's the reason why? Let's talk about this. What's the reason why you're not going to work? That's not a reason, because you beefing with the mom. That's not a reason to not go to work today. And I mean, it sounds elementary, but being able to convince the employer that we were going to be there for a period of time helped the employer to quote unquote take a chance on somebody that we knew was otherwise a good worker, and him staying in the program and being a part of that relationship building helped him. The guys in the program helped to also reinforce, no, that's not a good reason not to be going to work today because you're beefing with her, So, I mean, it's those relationship buildings, and it's that type of thinking. What I see it as a program that can offer sort of an intermediary role with respect to employers. I mean, all of these things, I mean, we're trying to overcome all of the issues that are in our community, but we've got to be creative with respect to these things. We were able to put 150 men a year into work in the city and kept a decent number of them working past a year with those types of strategies, relationship building, as you mentioned, telling the job employer that we were going to be an intermediary to stay on the job. I mean, we weren't there all the time. We weren't coming up all the time or calling how you're doing on a daily day, but we would check in to help with those problems. And all of those things helped us keep, men employed. The men were able to keep themselves employed, and it helped their families.
That's 150 families.
Yeah, and that was 150 more families. And the mothers who initially were resistant because they're saying, okay, you come in and support him. He's been away. He ain't been supporting his child. We help them to appreciate, look, we're going to be an honest broker. We're not here to be a crutch for him. We're here to help him. But, once the mothers understood that, they were on board and our biggest supporters. So all of those types of strategies are needed. And I'm hopeful that the commission can be a champion of some of those strategies and programs and agencies around the city.
When you talk about grant and bringing in program mentoring, it's vital, I feel, that we having an eye for, say, woodland or berry farms. There are already counselors that can be groomed
Yes,
in the neighborhood.
absolutely.
You just have to understand what neighbor, 'cause
Mhm.
I'm on the block
Mhm.
all the time,
Mhm.
and there's certain guys that run.
Well, that's getting back to his issue of relationship building. When you're putting together, you're trying to put programs in place like that, you want folks who have some respect already in the community. And that's very important in terms of what I think we need to think about. So,
thank you.
we've covered most of the issues there. Were there any other announcements that we need to make?
Well, we have our next commission meeting, October 18th. Yes.
Is it 18th?
18th, and we'll have Dr. Jeffrey Johnson.
Right. Dr. Johnson was scheduled for this past meeting, but we changed the time and wanted to make certain that he would have an opportunity to speak. So October 18th, and the staff will get us a proper notice. Can I have a motion to adjourn? I'll make it. That's fine. All opposed? All in favor? All opposed? Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Appreciate it.